Season opener for the BMW IBSF Bobsleigh and Skeleton World Cup in Whistler in Canada. First up on the fastest ice on the planet on Thursday morning, men's skeleton getting the new quad underway. Into the second heat, Olympic champion Christopher Groothair, after a 7th place run in Heat 1 of 2, laid down a smoking second effort to overhaul the current leader, teammate Felix Keisinger and Austria's Florian Auer, and put himself a little further up the order. But Groothair, 8 tenths away from the top of the pile after the first heat, was not expecting to take a medal this first race out after gaining Olympic gold to go with 2 World Championship wins in the previous 2 seasons. Good improvements all round in the second heat. And Groothair was still the leader as we got to his Olympic silver medal winning teammate Axel Jung. Axel starting the season healthy this year, having not had much training because he was training to be a policeman. But a great second run from the lanky driver from Dresden in Saxony put him into the leader's box. He would need to find more though to grab a medal, half a second away from the lead after the first of the 2 heats was more than driving talent alone was going to cover. He would require some help from those that followed. 3 sleds to go, and Jung Sung-gui from Korea was the first of them. 0.03 of a second off the lead for the Korean. 4:48 start, tying exactly his first, and 100th away from the track record set in 2019 by the great Martin Stukurz. A good second run from Jung would put him comfortably ahead of Axel Jung, and that would guarantee him a medal to start the World Cup season. The Koreans, with a change of coach and a change of sled, learning new equipment as they go. And a change of sled, a change of coaching and new equipment was the deal for Great Britain's Marcus Wyatt. Second after the first heat, just 0.02 off the lead, and breaking the start record of his now coach Martin Stukurz. To start the second run, he said it felt good, but he didn't know how good. What he did know was how good the trip down the Whistler ice felt, the fastest track on the planet, and he made it look relatively easy. No laughing matter when you are on brand new equipment that you've only had a few weeks to learn. A great run from Marcus Wyatt to put him in the lead. He tied exactly Jung's second run to lead by 100th. Final man out, already a World Cup winner, his teammate Matt Weston. Weston tying the new start record 4:46, but it didn't look as neat and tidy a run. A couple of mistakes crept in and gold slipped from his grasp. But he would add a bronze medal to the gold and the silver World Cup tally that he already has from the COVID-affected 2 seasons. Matt Weston, third at the line for Great Britain. The first time in history that British male sliders have taken 2 medals in 1 World Cup competition. Marcus Wyatt, the surprise winner. Matt Weston, bronze medal. Never happy not to win, Weston. Exactly the right attitude. But gold for the first time ever for Marcus Wyatt. He is also for the first time the World Cup points leader as we head to race 2 in Salt Lake City. Conditions remained favourable in the afternoon as the women's skeleton competition hit the ice. Second heat, and it's Great Britain's Brogan Crowley lying in 6th position after the first of the 2 runs. A great start from her, 4:74, a brand new start record, and an absolute flyer from the former Team GB junior heptathlete to put her spearing away from the current leader Tina Hermann, the last woman to win a race on this track at the top level, the world champion back in 2019 here. Crowley just continued to extend the advantage all the way down the super fast ice in Whistler to see her down a great 53.68 run. Anna Fernstedt, last race here, 4th place for Germany then in the World Championships 2019. Now she slides for the Czech Republic, and she lay in 5th place after the first of the 2 heats. In the red right from the start against the lightning fast Brogan Crowley, the veteran from the Czech Republic, who celebrated her 23rd birthday yesterday, could not quite find the pace to overhaul her British rival. Despite her experience, Fernstedt would drop a spot. 4 to go, and the World Cup champion and Olympic bronze medalist Kimberly Bos of the Netherlands next up. 11 of her 12 career World Cup medals have come in the last 15 World Cup starts, a season and a half. But this was not to add to that tally. She slipped behind Brogan Crowley, and worse than that, she also slipped behind the Czech Republic's Anna Fernstedt. A loose second run cost her all the speed she had built up in the first, and Kimberly Bos came tumbling down the order to 3rd spot, with 3 sleds still remaining. Canada's Jane Channel fell by the wayside before we got to Hannah Neiser, the Olympic champion from Germany, just 22 years old, in 2nd place after the first heat, 26 hundredths off the lead, but 2/10 clear of Brogan Crowley. Her slower start dropped her into the red. She would need all her undoubted sliding ability to take a medal here, her first visit to the Whistler track. The gap came down closer and closer as the meters unravelled, and into the final corner Thunderbird, she finally had the lead and just enough speed to carry it over the line. She took the lead with 1 to go. Final sled on ice was also the first sled on ice. An 18-year-old Canadian turned American slider, Hallie Clark. She had electrified the crowds with a great first run to lead on her very first World Cup slide. Could she hold it together? Quarter of a second, not much of an advantage over the Olympic champion, but she knows the track, and early on she had opened up that advantage. The fairy tale ending was not to come though. Down the Gold Rush Trail, it all started to come unravelled. The speed went away, and she came across the line in a dead heat for the silver medal with Brogan Crowley of Great Britain. Still a fantastic result for Crowley and rookie Hallie Clark on her debut, but victory went to Germany's Hannah Neiser. The Olympic champion finally has her first ever World Cup gold medal. Overnight rain may not have made it any more scenic, but the track was just as tricky for the women's Monobob season opener. Switzerland's Melanie Haster put down a 5th best start and a 5th best run in the first of the 2 heats of the women's mono here in Whistler, and with Kim Kalicki of Germany just close behind her after the first run, only 8 hundredths in her pocket, she needed another good trip, and the Swiss driver produced it. First time racing here in Whistler, she had 1 week of pre-season training and then the official runs to dial herself in the Monobob and the 2-seat sled, and it looked like the results were positive. Melanie Hassler into the lead with 4 sleds to go. Just a few hundreds ahead of Hassler, 12 hundreds in fact, Olympic and world Monobob champion Kaylee Humphries. She grew up sliding in Canada before moving to the USA and knows this track like the back of her hand. Nevertheless, she was still having to fight for every hundredth of a second to keep her advantage alive. Good speed, but low down, just 1 or 2 tiny errors creeping in, enough to rob her of a potential runaway. And at the line, it was closer than she would have wanted. Just enough to keep her in the lead with 3 sleds to go. Kaylee Humphries on the fringes of a medal. Into the top three with 2 Canadians and an Olympic champion remaining. Cynthia Appia, the start record holder, got even closer to matching it with her second run just a couple of hundredths away, and another good run was required to stay ahead of former teammate Humphries. Little mistakes early on meant that her 0.12 of a second advantage was gradually being eroded, and as she neared the finishing line, she was just a whisker in front. She would need all of her ability to hang on, duck for the line, and it was just enough. She was in the medals, 200ths in front of the Olympic champion. Final 2 sleds included rookie Bianca Reeby, just 1 World Cup start to her credit as a brake woman for her teammate Alicia Rissling in 2019, but her debut as a driver saw her within a fraction of leading the field, just 100th behind after the first heat, and her second run looked even better, holding off teammate Cynthia Appia and building her advantage over her Canadian teammate. A little flop late on, just a reminder that this track is fast and tricky, but it was Bianca Reeby who guaranteed herself at least a silver medal on her World Cup debut as a driver. The final sled was that of our Olympic women's bobsleigh champion, Lara Nolte. She'd had 100th of a second in hand after the first heat, but her first run was a little bit of a mismatch. It wasn't as good as we'd expected. She looked for more in the second heat, but looked a little too far, and 50-50 claimed another victim. Pushed away in 11 and 12, she rolled over in corner 13, and across the line, she would end up only 7th. She and teammate Lisa Bukvitz both crashing in the second heat. Both were okay, and Bianca Reeby ended up the surprised winner from Cynthia Appia and Kaylee Humphries. And it is Reeby who leads the World Cup standings after an astonishing debut on home ice. Friday afternoon and men's bobsleigh, starting with the 2-man. The fastest ice track on the planet is always a challenge. 31-year-old American driver Frankie Del Duca, in only his 3rd World Cup start, proved in the first run that this track is one to be taken seriously. And again, falling out of 50-50, it was Cedric Follador who repeated that in the second heat. Towards the front of the field, our Olympic 2-man bronze medalist Christoph Hafer. He was in the top 5 after the first of 2 runs, just 1/4 of a second off the lead. First thing to do, though, was to hold off the challenge from the man who had preceded him on the ice, Canada's Taylor Austin. A good second heat from the Canadian in only his 2nd ever World Cup race left Hafer under pressure on a track that he does not know at all well. Nevertheless, his class showed, and he speared away to a 3/10 advantage. Hafer led, but there were 4 sleds remaining. Michael Vogt was the best of the Swiss with regular brakeman Sandro Michel, and they too were in the hunt for the medals. 2/10 away from gold, but only 800ths away from the bronze. Vogt had made mistakes in the first heat and tried to tidy them up in the second. The speed was good, the run was there, but was it enough? Just squeezed ahead of Christoph Hafer at the line. Vogt had lost pace in his second heat, and that left Hansi Lochner perhaps a little freer to attack. And that's a good thing, because Lochner had injured his back, twisting it badly, making his bed in the hotel room during the week. He was in a degree of pain, but it didn't show. What did show, though, was despite his top speed, the gap over Vogt was coming down. This was going to be close at the line, only a few hundredths of a second in it, heading down to the final turns, and Hansi and his medal hung in the balance. Would it be Switzerland or Germany to claim the first bronze medal of the season? In the end, by 200ths, Johannes Lochner held on. Lochner led with 2 to go, and the final 2 Brad Hall of Great Britain and Francesco Friedrich of Germany were separated by just 100th in the first heat. Brad Hall and Taylor Lawrence's brakeman in the first World Cup race together in the two-man had two start mishaps, despite which they still had great speed on the ice, and Brad was driving up a storm on a track in which he previously finished 4th in the World Championships in 2019. Racing away from Hansi Lochner, his eyes were on trying to overhaul the greatest driver of a two-man sled ever, Francesco Friedrich.
Oh, I can't swear.
Friedrich and Alexander Schuller, who now is a real brakeman, having suffered a crash early in paid training, they were the ones to beat at the start of the week and all the way through training, and they remain so, easing away from Brad Hall with a much tidier second heat. Friedrich does make mistakes, he just doesn't usually repeat them. His first heat wasn't clean, his second heat was much better. A little worrying 50-50, but nothing to write home about. He came across the line, adding another 10th to his advantage to seal the first win of the new season. His 101st World Cup medal, Francesco Friedrich the winner and the leader of the World Cup after round one. The final day of competition on the Whistler ice Saturday morning kicked off with the women's bobsleigh. First heat showed us just how demanding this Whistler track can be as Riley Compton and her rookie brakewoman Neve Hockey crashed on turn 7. A long, hard, bumpy ride down to the bottom of the track lay in store for the Americans, and no second heat. In the second heat, yesterday's race winner, the gold medalist in mono, Bianca Reeby. She was in the top 5 after the first heat with her rookie brakewoman Neve Hockey. A good second run from the Canadian would put her at the top of the pile ahead of her teammates Cynthia Appia and Leah Walkenden, another rookie brakewoman in this rejuvenated Canadian program. And Bianca Reeby putting all her experience to good use to creep away from teammate Appia on a strong second run. Next up, Kaylee Humphries for the USA has not raced on this track for 5 years, but won the previous 5 World Cup races. She too has a new brakewoman, Emily Renner, behind her, and Kaylee using all of her experience dialing